Everybody.
We will wait a couple of minutes to get them logged in.
Sure. And you'll start us off.
Katılımcılarımızın gelmesini bekliyoruz. Merhabalar herkese. Hepiniz IEFT Talks webinarlarına hoş geldiniz. Bugün sunduğu indirimler ve burs imkanlarıyla Bournemouth Üniversitesi lisans ve yüksek lisans programlarını enliden dinliyor olacağız. Lütfen sorularınızı soru cevap bölümünden yönlendiriniz. Yes, Andy, the stage is yours now.
Thank you very much, Zeynep, and welcome everybody. Thanks for joining, and it's a pleasure to be talking to you today about Bournemouth University. I'm here on behalf of a colleague of mine, Nuria Moyano Martin, who is unwell at the moment. So you'll see her name throughout the presentation, and she's certainly the person that you can contact for further information. But obviously, we'll have some time for questions today after this presentation is finished. So I'm just going to share my screen. Oh, all these nice messages coming in. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. Okay, all being well, you can now see a presentation. So yes, welcome to Bournemouth University. So Nuria is my colleague who normally looks after all our recruitment from Turkey. And it's Nuria who's going to be sort of your main contact for any inquiries you have about the university. We've also got another colleague who's going to be attending the IEFT fairs later on well, actually, Zeynep can tell you when they are, but I'm not actually sure when they are, but they're coming up in a couple of months, I think. So we will have representation at those events as well in Istanbul and Ankara. But my job today is to tell you a little bit more about Bournemouth itself and about the university. I'm assuming that most of you are fairly new to the idea of Bournemouth, that you haven't visited before. So this is kind of where we're coming from. If you do know it, then great. Hopefully this will just sort of update you on what's happening in Bournemouth. But Bournemouth is a town on the southeast, on the south coast of England, with a population of about 185,000. So it's a fairly large town, but it's not a big city. And that's an important thing to know about Bournemouth. Actually, it's not a big metropolitan city like some of you might be used to, but it's a large town with a lot going on, and it's a really vibrant and colourful and multicultural place to live. Best known as a tourist resort in the UK. And that's certainly been what has driven the Bournemouth economy, if you like, for the last 100 years or so. But there's a lot more to Bournemouth as well. There's a big finance sector here in Bournemouth. It's one of the biggest financial centres for employment outside London within the UK. A big digital economy and a lot of international education as well. Bournemouth is one of 3 universities in the town. Bournemouth University itself is the largest one, but we sit alongside the Arts University Bournemouth, And we also have the AECC University College just up the road. So it's actually a 3-university town, even if the other 2 are fairly small and specialised. But tourism is what Bournemouth is best known for, certainly within the UK. And it is a really lovely beach resort. As you can see from some of the images down at the bottom of the screen here, it's a lovely big sandy beach, which runs for 12 kilometres, one end to the other. Part of that is actually in Poole, which is the town next door to us. But from one end of the beach to the other, it's 12 kilometres, and about 8 kilometres of that is Bournemouth, and about 4 kilometres of that is Poole. It is a very cosmopolitan and very international town. Lots of international students in town through language schools and through the universities, through various international colleges as well. And so it's a very multicultural, multilingual, multinational sort of a place. And a lot going on. As a tourist resort, there's always plenty for people to do. So whether you're down at the seafront, enjoying sunbathing and water sports, or whether you're enjoying the restaurants and the bars in the town or the shops or anything like that, lots of other entertainment goes on throughout the year. I will also point out this image in the bottom right here, which is an image from the Bournemouth Air Festival. As a tourist resort, Bournemouth has a lot of events throughout the year for people to come and enjoy, and the Bournemouth Air Festival is the biggest of those, and it's actually the biggest air festival in Europe, the biggest free public air festival certainly, and it runs over 4 days at the end of the summer, and attracts about 1.5 million people over the course of those 4 days to Bournemouth. So it's a very, very big event, completely free to attend. Just go down to the beach or sit on the cliff tops and you can see all sorts of exciting things going on. But that's just one of the whole series of events that run throughout the town and throughout the year. Bournemouth is a couple of hours away from London by train or by coach, a little bit longer by coach, about 2.5 hours by coach, and 2 hours on the train will get you into London Waterloo, 2.5 hours or so on the coach into London Victoria. So it's very easy access to and from London, even quicker from Heathrow Airport. It's usually about 1.5 hours away. So when you're travelling to Bournemouth, and especially if you're coming through Heathrow, it's a very, very easy journey in. The university itself was established as a university in 1992, although the roots of the institution go back quite a bit further than that. We're about 100 years old as an institution. Started out as a municipal college and became a higher education institution later on, and then university status was granted in 1992. So we're in our 30th, well, we've just passed our 30th year really as a university. And in that time, Bournemouth University has grown and developed into one of the best recognised professionally oriented universities in the UK. We have a particularly strong reputation, I think, for innovating new fields, for offering degrees in subjects that haven't been offered before. There are a number of firsts here at Bournemouth University, like tourism and hospitality. We were the first to offer degree courses in public relations. We're the first to offer degree courses in computer animation. And so Bournemouth has developed a reputation for innovating new areas of study which weren't offered through universities before. And part of that growth has been developing new facilities, new buildings, as well as expanding staff. And in recent years, we've spent £250 million in new buildings. I'm sitting in one of them now. It's a lovely big teaching building. It's this one right here, actually, if you can see my mouse pointer, the second image along. That's the Fusion building, and that is our biggest teaching building on campus. And it's a cross-faculty teaching building. Our 4 faculties have buildings of their own, which they concentrate a lot of their own teaching into, and a lot of their facilities are in those buildings as well. But Fusion building here is for everybody to use. That's partially why it's called the Fusion building. It's all about coming together. So all our courses on the campus can be taught in part through the Fusion building. But we've expanded our library resources. We have the biggest digital library of any UK university now. That was very, very helpful for us during COVID lockdown. A lot of universities had to suddenly invest in a lot of digital resource, but Bournemouth actually had a huge amount of digital research material already available. We have centres of excellence in various areas of our teaching. The Centre for Excellence in Media Practice is the only one of its kind in the UK, and the Tourism and Hospitality Department is one of the best recognised in the world. Actually, it's our world rankings in tourism and hospitality are extremely strong. NCCA, which is mentioned there, is the National Centre for Computer Animation, and that is a leading centre for animation teaching. If you're more interested in business, then our business school, which is one of our 4 faculties, is actually one of our biggest faculties as well, as you might imagine. It attracts a lot of students and has our biggest courses. But it's also accredited by the AACSB, the Association to Advance Collegiate Schools of Business. Now, that might not be an accreditation that you've heard of, but it is an accreditation which other universities will have heard of, which employers will have heard of. And it's a very, very difficult one to achieve. We were one of only 7, I believe, at the current count, modern universities, the post-1992 universities in the UK, to have achieved AACSB. It's a very long process to get AACSB accreditation. And it's what it means is that we teach our courses, our business courses especially in this case, but actually all of our courses really, in a collegiate way, which means you're working alongside other students, you're working alongside staff, you're working alongside industry, you're working alongside researchers. And so you're not just sitting in a silo, you're not sitting in your own little bubble and just doing your thing. It's all about cooperation across the university and even outside the university to see you through that program. And so it's bringing all of those factors together. That's how we do our teaching here at Bournemouth. And so that is reflected particularly in the AACSB accreditation for the business school, but it is how we do our teaching across all our courses at the university. And so, as I mentioned, our world rankings are very strong, particularly in those subject areas like tourism, but actually as a university overall, our world rankings are going up and up and up. And so we're in the top 300 universities in the world this year in the Times Higher Education World University Rankings. And within that, one of the top 70 young universities, that's universities under 50 years old. And that says a lot about Bournemouth and the way we do things. Bournemouth is a young university. There are centuries old universities in the UK. And obviously we are very different to how those universities work. We look very different, we operate very differently, we teach very different subjects. But what we do gets a lot of good recognition and is very successful in achieving the aims that we set out for, which is primarily employability for our graduates, but also on a wider level, improving the world, which is what essentially any university tries to do. We're on 2 campuses, the Talbot campus and the Lansdowne campus. Both of those are quite different. Talbot campus is where most of you would be based for your studies. That's where most of our courses are taught. And it's where 3 of our faculties are based, with the business school being split over 2 campuses. The only faculty that's based entirely at the Lansdowne campus, which is in the town centre, is the Health and Social Science faculty. Everything else is based at Talbot campus, although the business school does its postgraduate teaching at Lansdowne, and I'll come on to that in a moment. But the Lansdowne campus is a city campus, as they usually call it. It's a number of buildings dotted around a particular area of town, fairly close together, very often right next to each other, but not a centralised campus. While the Talbot campus, which is where I'm sitting right now, and it's where the Fusion building is, most of these images are actually of the Talbot campus. That is a centralised campus where everything is all in together. And so that is actually where the majority of you would probably be based. We're quite a large university, just over 18,000 students this year, including around about 2,800 international students from a very wide range of countries, around about 135 nationalities represented on campus. And currently Turkey is, I think I'm right in saying, our 3rd biggest international student body, with about 100 students from Turkey with us right now. So it's a great place to not only mix with other nationalities, but also to be comfortable, surrounded by people from your from your own country as well, for a little taste of home. A quick look at campus facilities here. In terms of student recreational facilities, let's say, especially, we have a big restaurant here on campus, officially 7 coffee shops. Coffee is student fuel, absolutely is. So you'll find coffee all over the campus, but also student bars between our 2 campuses as well. We have a big gym here on campus, which includes, well, the sports centre includes the gym, the fitness zones and the dance studios, also heavy weightlifting rooms and multi-purpose sports hall and various other sports facilities, including outdoor all-weather pitches and an actual grass playing field for our sports teams just 5 minutes up the road from the campus itself. Lots of sport going on campus. We are quite a sporty university. We are actually in the top 25 universities in the country for sport in the BUCS leagues, the British Universities and Colleges Sport Leagues. And that's a national competitive league for universities in lots of different sports. And our own sports operate in I think I'm right in saying 40 different competitive sports across the university, and lots of different teams within each of those sports. So if you are into your sports, if you're an athlete, you've played at a high level in a particular sport, then come and talk to GBP'ye about the opportunities they can provide in terms of keeping up your level of performance in that sport and potentially getting sports scholarship as well. Now, I mentioned a couple of the faculties already, but this is an overview for you. So the business school is the largest, in terms of international intake especially, the largest of our faculties, and that's where you find accounting, finance, economics, business and marketing, tourism and hospitality, sports, along with other specialist areas like events management and retail management. And so it's a very broad business school. The tourism and hospitality department in that is a very large department on its own. Used to be a faculty in its own right, but it was combined with the business school a few years ago, but still operates on quite an independent level within the faculty. One of our best known faculties is the Faculty of Media and Communication, and that is where you find computer animation, communications, production, but also our humanities departments. So you'll find politics, history, English and law. It's an unusual place for a humanities department to sit, but there is actually quite a strong logic behind it when you look at how it interconnects the teaching in humanities with various areas of the media. Faculty of Science and Technology, again a very big one, and there are basically 3 broad areas to that. The Department of Design, Engineering, Computing, which includes all our design and engineering courses, our computing and software, and our creative technology. Earth and Life Sciences, which is where you find archaeology, anthropology, forensic science, and environmental science. And the Psychology Department, which is a very big department all of its own within that faculty. So there are kind of 3 broad areas to science and technology, all under that one roof. And then the Faculty of Health and Social Science, which is a very, very professionally focused, hands-on, very practical teaching faculty within the health sciences, working alongside the National Health Service here in the UK, with lots of our students on placement through NHS hospitals, clinics, and through private clinics as well, on the ambulance services and all that kind of thing around this area. And so if health science is your thing, then there's some excellent options for you in there. We're going to take a closer look at some of these areas. The NCCA I mentioned earlier, the National Centre for Computer Animation. It's one of our best known subjects, and as I mentioned right at the beginning, one of the subjects that Bournemouth University was the first to offer. So the NCCA here at Bournemouth University has been running for over 40 years now, and it was the first of its kind in the UK. A lot of our graduates out there in the industry now. I read a statistic not long ago that indicated that about half the people working in computer animation in the UK are actually Bournemouth University graduates, which I'm quite prepared to believe, because we've been doing it on such a large scale for so much longer than most other universities. And so it is a very, very well recognised department. worldwide, recognized as one of the best in the world and among the best in Europe. And so the NCCA is a really strong place to come and study if you're interested in animation and visual effects. They also run the UK's biggest animation festival, the BFX Festival, which takes place in September each year, October each year, and is a big celebration of everything the university does in animation and visual effects, but also a professional conference, allowing our students to engage very closely with industry and for industry to talk to our students and especially those final year students who are coming up towards graduation about the kind of job opportunities that are out there for them. But we have Oscar winners amongst our student body as well, or amongst our alumni body. One of whom has now won 3 Oscars for his animation work. He's done a great deal. That's a guy called Andy Lockley, who works at Double Negative Studios in London. He's now got 3 Oscars to his name, but so we have other Oscar winners in there as well. Lots of BAFTA winners on top of that too. So award-winning graduates and alumni out there from NCCA, and a lot of industry engagement, very high level of industry engagement there. And our industry engagement in animation allows students to do things that other universities don't give opportunity for, which includes working one-to-one very closely with quite senior members of animation studios in the UK to develop a professional piece of animation. It would only be short, might only just be a few seconds long, but it would normally be what they call an asset, taken from a film, perhaps something that was cut from a major feature film and so was never fully developed to production standard. And you will work with an individual from that studio to build that piece of animation up to full production quality, and that's something that no other university offers, and that's because of the level of relationship that Bournemouth University has with the animation industry after so many years of working in it. Well, actually, I've just seen the stat on the right hand side here. So 70% of people working in computer animation in the UK are from BU, so it's grown since since I last saw it. Also in the Faculty of Media and Communication, you'll find journalism, advertising, marketing, comms, media production, film and TV. Media faculty is a very hands-on faculty. Lots and lots of practical work, lots and lots of practical assessment as well. They don't offer very many exams in these subject areas. There are some in journalism, there are some in advertising, marketing, but actually most of the assessment you will do on their courses is practical assessment. So it's practical project-based assessment, because that is far more relevant to the careers that you'll be going into, to the employers who will be looking to take you on. And in some of those areas, it's 100% practical assessment, certainly in computer animation, in film and TV, no exams at all to do in there. It is all practice-based assessment. Lots of really strong facilities, really high quality facilities. We opened a brand new building on campus, the Bournemouth Gateway building, to house all our production facilities. And it opened about 5 minutes before the UK went into COVID lockdown. And so everything in there is still quite shiny and new. It's been up and running for, well, better part of 2 years now. But it's still really high standard facilities in there. And that includes film sound stage, TV studios, an open studio as well, sort of out in the lobby of the building. There are music studios and game studios and animation labs, a green screen, a motion capture facility, editing suites, radio suites. It's a really professional standard production-based facilities building. Teaching space in there too, of course, just regular teaching rooms, but particularly focused towards those creative media programs. And the game studios in there actually owned and run by the Faculty of Science and Technology rather than Media and Communication. But they were put in there so that they could work alongside the animation students and the music students, so that there could be close cooperation across the faculties where there is such relevance between those courses. Moving on to Faculty of Science and Technology. A lot of practical facilities again here, again a lot of hands-on teaching. That's how we like to do our teaching, really. We're not a very theoretical university. There's theory in all of our courses, but we focus on the practical applications of what we're teaching. And so as much as possible, we include practical facilities for what we do. That includes a cybersecurity unit, a very important up and coming subject. And again, we were the first to offer it. And it's one of the most advanced cybersecurity units in the UK university sector, certainly. And in the Cybersecurity Centre, students will learn all about the business, if you like, of digital defence, really, of how to protect digital systems, government systems, business systems, public services from cyber attack. But they will learn both sides of that situation. So you'll have students who are well, there are two labs in the Cybersecurity Centre. One are the attackers, the ones who are carrying out the cyber attacks. The others are defending against them, and so everybody can see how it works on both sides, so you can fully understand the nature of what goes on, so you can be better prepared for dealing with it. The music studios, as I mentioned, those are actually in the Gateway building alongside the media facilities. But our courses focus on music technology, so it's music sound production technology. And so it's not really about composition, it's more about how to create sound and how to record sound at a high quality. So we're focusing on the technological side of music. Our Design and Innovation Centre is where we have all our design and engineering facilities. So there we have metalwork workshops, woodworking, electronics workshops, 3D printing, plastic molding. We've got a spray room for spray painting and for fine lining. We also have what else have we got in there? There's a lot of different plastic molding facilities in there too. So and materials testing. So our mechanical engineers especially will be using the materials testing lab, testing the strength and failure points of any materials which are going to be used for particular projects. So it's a very comprehensive design and innovation centre. Games development labs, again in the Gateway building alongside media. And we also run what we call the Festival of Design and Innovation, which is the graduate show for all of our final year students. Unusually, here at Bournemouth University, we require our final year students to make a fully working prototype of their final design. Most universities will just ask you to produce a design. We actually want you to make it. We want you to make it work. So it needs to be a new item. It can't just be another kind of toaster or another kind of kettle. It needs to be something new, something which is beneficial to society. These are the things that we stipulate for our design projects. So something which is new and beneficial to people, and which has never been seen before. And you then have to actually make it. So you have to learn all the working with electronics, with plastics, with metals, with wood, whatever it is you're going to be making it out of, in order to make it actually work. And so it's a very high profile design show for that reason. And a lot of our students will then go on to national graduate shows as well. And they will exhibit their work at national conferences and national design shows where even more employers are coming to pay attention to them. So it's a very high expectation, I suppose, on those final projects for our design students. But what they come out with is incredible. Just take a look at the website for some of the great designs that they come up with. Now, to look a bit more closely at accommodation, obviously a key issue for anybody who's coming to study at university is where are you going to live? And most of our accommodation is in halls of residence. We have on-campus accommodation in the student village, which is the middle image over here. That is for undergraduate students primarily. So if you're looking at postgraduate study, you're most likely going to be in halls of residence. There are just a few postgraduate self-contained houses in the student village, but most of the shared houses are, well, all the shared houses are for undergraduate students. And then the main halls of residence, some of those are undergraduate, one or two of them are postgraduate only, some of them are shared. But you'll never be sharing facilities with somebody who's studying at a different level. ultimately because undergraduate students, the undergraduate academic year is 40 weeks, while the postgraduate academic year is 50 weeks. So you'll be in different parts of the building. You'll only ever be sharing with people of a similar study level to yourself. So in the halls of residence, you would typically have ensuite rooms, all single occupancy. So there's no shared rooms in the halls of residence. It's all single occupancy, and you would typically have an ensuite bathroom. And you would share normally a kitchen and living room area with typically 5 other students. Although if you're postgrad, then there are, again, completely self-contained apartments within a lot of those halls of residence as well. So there, everything is all yours. Obviously, that costs a bit more. You get what you pay for with these things. So halls of residence rooms will start around about £140 a week for what we call the cluster room, which is a private study bedroom with an ensuite bathroom, going up to nearly £200 per week for the studio apartments. Student village is a little bit cheaper because it's not ensuite. You have shared bathrooms in each house. So student village rooms are typically a bit cheaper, starting about £119 a week, and going up to 163 for those self-contained postgraduate houses. And then the university letting service, Unilet, as it's usually abbreviated to, that's a network of privately owned houses in the local area, which are rented by the university and sublet to students. So the university acts as a letting agent, effectively. And those rooms can vary in size, and the facilities in the house will vary as well. So there's quite a lot of variation in the prices, but starting about £103 a week. So it's a good option if you're on more of a budget, going up to about 125. So it's typically a budget option, usually used by our second and final year undergraduate students, sometimes by postgraduates as well. But it's typically undergrads in the university letting service. A few key facts and entry information for you. I won't go through all of this in a huge amount of detail. You can see it there on the screen. But bachelor's degrees with us are typically 3 or 4 years. All of our bachelor's degrees offer placements. In some cases, it's incorporated into the 3 years in things like nursing or midwifery, physiotherapy. But in most courses, the placement would be an extra year. And that will be the 3rd year of the course. So you'll do 2 years university, 1 year placement, and 1 year then back at the university to finish off your degree. So it's the 3rd year out of 4 on most of our courses. That's what we typically call the sandwich course. Master's degrees are 1-year programs. If offered with a January start, which most of our master's degrees are now, then they take a little bit longer. So the standard master's is 12 months, but with a January start, it can be up to 18 months. Basically because the summer vacation gets in the way. So there's no extra teaching, but you have a bit of an extra gap in the middle, which you would use typically as research time. You can also use it actually partially as placement time. But most students will use that as research planning time ahead of their dissertations. So there are work placements opportunities at undergraduate level, but also at postgraduate level. So if you include a placement in your master's degree, it becomes a 2-year course regardless. And a lot of our master's courses now do offer that placement opportunity. Very similar to the undergraduate placements, but that's already a very high standard. And it gives you an opportunity to put into practice the things that you've learned throughout that program. In some cases, those placements take place in the middle of the course, after the core taught element of the course and before you do the specialist teaching and the dissertation. In other cases, it will actually be an extra year on the end. So you'll do the whole master's degree and then do the placement elements after that. So it varies from one faculty to another. For Turkish students entering at undergraduate level, we're looking at the Turkish High School Diploma or the IB. If you've got a 3.5 GPA from high school, or at least 28 points in the IB, then that's the kind of level we're looking at for entry to most of our undergraduate courses. And for postgrad entry, a bachelor's degree with a GPA of 2.3 or better. Typically IELTS 6 is the standard requirement for most of our degrees. Others will ask for higher, such as the science degrees or journalism, where you might be looking at 6.5 or 7. And higher level studies such as postgraduate research would typically be a 6.5 or a 7 as well. We do accept lots and lots of different alternative language qualifications, so it doesn't have to be IELTS. There are lots of others out there that you can choose, and we will consider a lot of different options, and you'll find them listed all on our website. We also offer Presessional English and Pathway programs through our on-campus partner, which is Kaplan, and they run the Bournemouth University International College. So if your qualifications aren't quite enough for entry at the level you want, you can probably do an access pathway through the BU International College to raise your academic standards. Or if you just need to do some more English language study, we offer Presessional English through the International College as well. But we do have an exception for students who studied a bachelor's in Turkey if it was taught in English. So if your degree was taught fully in the medium of English, we can accept that in place of the other language qualifications that we'd normally ask for. An indication here of fees and scholarships. This is these are the fees for 2023 entry, I think I'm right in saying. And so these are our current tuition fees for the entry year coming up. The £1,850 fee is for the placement, and that is the same at undergraduate and postgraduate level. There's no teaching on the placement year, of course, so there's no full tuition fee for the placement year, but the placement fee covers the work of the placement administrators, who will be in touch with you a lot. They'll normally come and visit you and see how things are going on your placement, and so it's the admin cost of maintaining your placement essentially, but you would typically be paid to do a placement. Living costs, we recommend usually at least £12,000. It's to cover all your accommodation, your travel, your food, your clothing, and course materials, all that kind of thing. So anything in addition to the tuition fee of the university. So at £12,000 would be fine. £14,000 would be quite comfortable. Obviously, a lot of that depends on the accommodation you're using. So the total costs are worth bearing in mind, because higher education very much is an investment, and so the indication there is for your guidance. We do offer an academic excellence scholarship for postgraduate students, and so if you're getting a GPA of 2.8 or better from Turkey, then you will automatically receive a £3,500 fee reduction on a master's degree. We don't have any undergraduate scholarships of that kind at the moment, but you can still look at sports and music scholarships, for example. And if you smile nicely at Nuria, she might be able to give you what we call an opportunity scholarship, because all of us in the recruitment team will be given a certain amount of money to assist some of our students in meeting their tuition fees. And so an opportunity scholarship is a flexible scholarship which we can apply in some cases. We can't give it to everybody, but if only we could. But some of you might be lucky enough to get an opportunity scholarship. And when it comes to payments, for postgraduate courses, we will ask for a £3,000 deposit in advance, and then the remainder of the fee will be split into 2 equal portions. The first to be paid when you enroll, the second to be paid 3 months later. So it's essentially a 3-payment scheme with an initial deposit, and then 50% of the remainder at enrolment, 50% 3 months later. In terms of applications, when it comes to making an undergraduate application, we would ask you to use UCAS. That's the national system for the UK, the Universities and Colleges Admissions Service, and all British universities basically are plugged into UCAS. And so you can apply for multiple universities through UCAS, up to 5 universities, certainly up to 5 courses. That could be 5 courses in 5 different universities, could be 5 courses at Bournemouth University, but it allows you 5 options to all at once to apply to the UK. Once you get the offers back, you then choose your first and second options, which will become your firm and conditional, your firm and insurance places. Conditional would be an offer that we could make if you had some results still outstanding. So if you hadn't finished your final exams. And unconditional means that the place is yours. We've seen everything we need to see. Typically, for postgraduate courses, though, you just apply directly to the university. So just go onto the course page on our website. You'll find a green button at the top saying apply now, and that will take you into our online application system. Preloads the course information once you select the course you want, and then you just put in all your personal details, your qualification details, and submit. In terms of the documents we're looking for, in some cases you might want to see a CV, especially if you're applying for something like the MBA where we need some work experience. But very often a CV can be helpful if you've got good work experience in an area that's relevant to the subject you're applying for. We'll also need to see your passports, a personal statement, which is very important. That tells us all about your motivation, your focus on the subject, what it is about that particular course that got you excited enough to apply for it. And an agent consent form if you're applying through one of our agents in Turkey. We also need to see a reference, your transcripts, and your certification from your university if you're applying for postgraduate courses. So we need to see all the documentation for your current degree. In a few cases, there might be interviews or portfolio assessments, especially if you're going for something like computer animation, where they will want to see a fine arts portfolio. And normally do a quick informal interview just to talk through your portfolio content and your kind of artistic work before they make a final decision on your application. And in most cases, it will take between 4 and 6 weeks to process an application. The admissions team is under a lot of strain at the moment because there's very high demand for the UK right now from several countries. And so application turnaround on some subjects might be longer than on others, but for a lot of our courses, it would typically be about a 4-week turnaround. And that might become longer if it's one of the high demand areas. And that, I think, is everything that I needed to talk about. You've got Nuria's details there. That's Nuria's email address. And you can also find information online from current students. There are vlogs and blogs from our current students if you want to get a bit more insight into student life and the student experience here at Bournemouth University. And you can also chat one-to-one with our student ambassadors through a scheme called UniBuddy. You'll find this in a lot of universities, and it's a one-to-one chat system. So just go to bournemouth.ac.uk/UniBuddy, and you will find lots of our student ambassadors available there to send messages to. You can look for people from your country, or you can look for people from your particular course or area of study to ask about their experience and what they think of the place. So all that is there for you. This session is being recorded, and I think you'll be given access to the recording. So I will take this slide down now, and I will switch back to, there we go, stop sharing. And I will switch back to my meeting screen. So, thank you very much for listening. We've got some time for questions. If anybody would like to ask anything, then the floor is yours. I'm just going to open up the chat actually, because we may have some questions in there. Okay, let's look at the Q&A. All right. So Q&A. So first one, could you please let us know the monthly expenses for international students? I think that was there in the presentation. Well, I suppose that was more kind of annual tuition fees. But in terms of monthly expenses on the accommodation, we tend to quote accommodation by week rather than by month. So take the weekly figures and multiply them by 4 or so. So for most of our accommodation, let's say, it would be something in the order of £150 per week. So that comes to what, about £600 per month for accommodation, thereabouts. Some will be a bit more, some will be a little bit less. And then additional expenses on top of that would just be sort of your routine expenses for transport, clothing, food, etc. So we could normally reckon on around about maybe £700 to £800 per month, including all your accommodation, to break it down month by month. But the actual tuition fees would obviously be paid on an annual basis rather than split across months. We also had a question here about, do we offer Presessional English classes? And yes, as I mentioned, Presessional English is offered through our international college, the Bournemouth University International College run by Kaplan. That has lots of different entry points. You do need an IELTS test quite specifically to enter the international college. They don't have the same kind of flexibility that universities have on entry requirements, so they have to ask for IELTS tests, but they've got entry points for lots of different IELTS levels. So if you're coming in with IELTS 4.5 or better, then they will have an entry point for you. Some of that will start at general English, especially if you're at the sort of 4.5 end, but they've even got entry points for students who've already got an IELTS 6 or even 6.5. And they're primarily focusing on the usage of English, then the study skills involving English, and so yes, there's Presessional English for all kinds of situations for sure, but all offered through Bournemouth University International College. The next question here, I'm wondering if Bournemouth University offers special scholarships for Turkish students. Well, the only ones particular to Turkish students would be the opportunity scholarships which Nuria would provide for you. So there are no Turkish scholarships offered through universities, or at least through Bournemouth University. Most universities will keep their own scholarships, sort of general international scholarships. But the Academic Excellence Scholarship, which I mentioned, is an unlimited award, not unlimited in amount. That will be £3,500 for postgraduate students, but we're unlimited in terms of how many of those we can offer. So there's no sort of cap on that. So any postgraduate student eligible for it will receive it, and that includes, of course, Turkish students. But yes, Nuria's opportunity scholarship funds, which you would normally award as maybe £1,000 or £2,000 discounts, would be particular to Turkey in that case. How would studying at Bournemouth University make a difference in my career? There we go. That's a challenging question. Well, Bournemouth University is a career-focused university. We're not unique in that, but it is something that we put at the heart of all our teaching. Bournemouth University is an outstanding university in many respects, but particularly in our level of professional recognition and professional engagement. So we work alongside industry to a very large extent, and we have professional accreditations across most of our courses. So AACSB is the big accreditation on the business school, but alongside that there are professional accreditations for business schools, such as the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, the Chartered Institute of Marketing, the Chartered Management Institute, the Institute of Direct and Digital Marketing, and I think there are others as well, but specific to particular business pathways on the undergraduate degrees perhaps. So you'll find accreditations of that nature across the university. So things like TIGER, the Independent the Independent Game Developers Association, gives accreditation to our games degrees. The British Psychological Society gives accreditation to our psychology degrees. The British Computing Society to our computing degrees, etc. So on most of our degrees you will find there is professional accreditation, and that is an extra level of recognition. Obviously a British degree is well recognized anyway, but those professional accreditations on the qualification give it an extra sort of quality stamp, basically, which shows that the industries really recognize the quality of what we're doing. They've probably been involved in teaching it as well. A lot of our courses will include, well, all of our courses to one extent or another will include professional engagement. So you'll be having guest lectures, you'll be having networking events, you'll maybe have competitions, you might have consultancy projects, all done in conjunction with industry. And that level of professional engagement is actually quite unusual. So Bournemouth University focuses particularly on engaging our students with the professions and with industry. And so that, combined with the fact that our courses are designed to give you workplace skills and workplace knowledge and include the placement opportunity, means that you can be graduating with very high level industry knowledge and industry recognition and industry experience as well. And our graduate employment rate does reflect that. We're in the mid-90s for graduate employment and further study rate. So if you need to do further study in your subject in order to progress into a career, then that counts in there as well. But I think we're about 93% graduate employment and further study rate. So it can get you off to a great start in in your career, is the short answer to that question. But because we make sure that you're career focused and career engaged throughout your whole study time at the university. I hope that answers your question. Merv has asked, can I get a work permit after graduation? Well, in the UK, you can get what's called the Graduate Immigration Route Visa, and that is a graduate working visa, which if you complete a postgraduate course in the UK, then you can apply for a 2-year working visa in the UK. You don't have to have a job already in order to apply for that. You just need to have completed a master's degree in the UK. And you can then apply for that 2-year working visa, giving you time to look for and find a suitable job and start working in the UK. And then if you're getting on well in that job and the employer wants to keep you, they can then become a sponsor for you to then get an actual work permit visa, higher level, a different tier of working visa here in the UK. So you can move on from being on the graduate immigration route visa to being on a full working visa, as long as your employer is happy to keep you on and will sponsor you for that visa. So yes is the short answer. If you're coming out of a bachelor's degree, it is a bit more complicated. You can work in the UK, but you don't have the graduate immigration route visa for undergraduate students or those graduating from an undergraduate degree. So it's then a lot more challenging. You've got a much shorter amount of time in which to find a job, but you can still have a bit of time to look for work, find a job. And that's where the placements really come in, because a lot of those placement students will go back to work for the company that they did the placement with. In many cases, they will leave that placement with a job offer in their hand, and they've already got that waiting for them when they graduate. So so that can actually help you get started more quickly on working in the UK. So it is possible, but it's easier from the postgraduate routes. What is the minimum IELTS or TOEFL to get accepted? Yes, I covered that as well, I think. So typically IELTS 6, which would be a TOEFL IBT score of 90 as far as we're concerned. Or is it 80? I'll have to check the website, but I don't normally work in TOEFL. But an IELTS 6 is typical for our courses. But again, there are a lot of other English language tests and qualifications that we can accept, and certain exemptions for students from Turkey as well. That's all the questions I can see in the Q&A. Does anyone have any other questions they want to put in there, or they want to put in the chat? We've still got a few minutes left if any other questions come up. If you can't think of any questions now, of course, you can bring them along to the IEFT fairs. I think it's going to be my colleague Karishma who's attending the IEFT fairs this year. So she'll be attending in place of Nuria. But you can, of course, email Nuria as well on the email address that's in the presentation and ask her your questions, or put some questions to our student ambassadors. And we've got some staff on there as well on UniBuddy. So if you go to the university website, www.bournemouth.ac.uk/UniBuddy, there you'll find all our student ambassadors and some of our staff available to chat with as well. So we've got the last few minutes available if anybody wants to ask any other questions.
Yes, thank you very much for your answers, Andy. Looks like you covered all of the questions.
I think we did.
Could you please put an email address on the chat box, so if the participants have further questions, they can contact you?
Okay, so I'll put in a couple actually. Let me just change that to everyone, because otherwise I'm only going to write it to you. So if you've got general questions about the university, at the moment you could write to inquiries@bournemouth.ac.uk. Oh, the lights just went off in my room. That's not a good sign. Nuria herself is on Martin at UK, and you can also, if you've already applied to the university and you want to ask a question about your application, then it's IAT bournemouth.ac.uk. So those three email addresses are in the chat now. I'm not trying to dodge your questions myself. It's just that Nuria is our expert for Turkey, so she's normally the one I would suggest you contact. But yes, for general inquiries, you can just contact inquiries at, and for admissions, IAT, that's the International Admissions Team at bournemouth.ac.uk. And so you can certainly put any questions through to those three email addresses, or one of them anyway.
Yes, thank you very much for the great presentation, Andy. It was very informative for the attendees. And you covered all of the questions. Thank you for your answers too, once again. And I would like to thank the participants in Turkish as well. Katıldığınız için teşekkür ederiz arkadaşlar. Umarım sizin için de faydalı bir webinar olmuştur. Bournemouth Üniversitesi ile ilgili diğer sorularınız için chat kısmında paylaşılmış olan mail adresinden ilgili kişiyle iletişime geçebilirsiniz. Bir sonraki webinarlarımızda görüşmek üzere. Thank you very much again, Andy. It was a pleasure to have you in IEFT Talks.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for joining, everybody, and thank you, Zeynep, for hosting. And we hope to hear from you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Thank you. Bye-bye now.